Now, I have a friend who travels around, he works on equipment a lot, he buys and sells equipment a lot, he always comes up with good stuff. So one day he came to me and said that he found a pile of motors for sale. And there were air-cooled diesel engines that were 11 horsepower per cylinder. I'm immediately intrigued. Now when he said a 11 horsepower air-cooled diesel, I was picturing this. This is a around 10 horsepower air-cooled diesel. And I was picturing a 2 or 3 cylinder version of this motor. And I said, okay, thought about it a little bit. Now this Jeep still has an empty engine bay, and a little 3-cylinder air-cooled diesel would be perfect. I said, why don't you get me 3 cylinders worth of diesel? And he said, well, okay, how about a 2-cylinder also? So I said, sure. And this is what he brought me. These are way bigger than I expected. Apparently, this was surplus oil field engines. Now, what I understand is that basically they were taking out of oil field service for one of 2 reasons. Either they stopped working, or they're replaced by an electric motor. And being replaced by an electric motor is pretty common, so there's a shot these might actually work. Now, I can tell these are Lister diesel motors because it's in the valve cover. This one definitely has 2 cylinders, that one definitely has 3. So already we got exactly what we ordered. Now this one is labeled 29.5 horsepower at 2200 RPM. That means it's 15 horsepower per cylinder. And this one says 44.25 horsepower at 2200. Again, about 15 horsepower per cylinder. At least they have more power than I thought. Now I've got the 2-cylinder hanging here. Let's see what this weighs. £964, and that's the light one. Now let's check out the weight on the big one. We have got 1,076 pounds. So, what I have here is 2,000 pounds of diesel that I have no use for. Let's get them running. These both have an in-out clutch. And that appears to be the fan. Oh, okay, so we go this way to cool the motor. Apparently the air filter broke off this one. And this 2-cylinder one also seems to burn a hole straight through the muffler. That's not really a good sign either. I'm guessing that's fuel inlet going through a filter. Then we go down maybe a water separator, then back up, and somewhere under here. I think the injection pump is inside here. They probably have 1 per cylinder, I'd guess. This is something. Oh, hey, little plunger. Wonder if this is to prime the system, maybe? Thinking this is the throttle, and the lever's broken off, of course, but it looks like it used to catch on these teeth here to set your position. The stop here, that's kind of not very useful. And nothing up there. Does this move? Oh yeah, it moves. All right, good. And that seems to adjust something down here. Now there's something here too. What is this? That might be a shutoff, maybe. There's got to be something that shuts off the fuel. That kind of feels like it's spring-loaded, like you push it to shut it off, maybe. And you could cable operate it. There's a small hole there. Got a filter here, and we got a sight gauge right there. The oil is very black, but it looks like it's up. What's this? Oh, we also have a dipstick. There's a hole in the flywheel cover. I'm assuming that's some kind of timing mark. Now this right here is a compression release, and basically it turns around and just runs into a valve. So it just keeps the valve hanging open. Now I know for a fact this motor has been sitting outside, but I don't know as how long it's been sitting outside with no air filter. So I'm going to turn this over by hand and see if water spews out anywhere, or if it turns over. I think it does. The buddy who picked it up said it did turn. So he's good at motors. Doesn't turn easy. We're going to try going with a bigger wrench here. Alright, there it turns. Make sure it can do a full rotation. Seems to be getting easier as I turn it. Alright, it turns over. That's good. Has a battery hooked to it. And got my good old starter switch hooked to it. Got the fuel tank that I found on that half track. It was pretty empty after a decade, so poured some diesel in it, and we got that running to the filter. And it doesn't start at all. Okay, we got power here. Let's see if our switch is working. Yep, we got power there, which means we have a starter that is not working. There's one obvious way to fix starters. Ah, perfect, it worked. That appears to be rust coming out of there. Maybe dirt. That's really not a good sign. Kind of looks like dirt. Well, let's turn on the compression and see what happens. That was promising. Smoky, but promising. Starter has some issues powering itself. I wonder if I should actually mount this motor to something. You know, I'm gonna make sure that this doesn't topple over on us. We're gonna do something here, because it looks like it will run, because it was just running. Now what I've done is put my engine hoist hooked to the top of the motor and the lifting ring, and at least that way it won't fall over. So now we're safe. Let's try this again. Well, definitely does something. Now let's try it again. Okay, let's see where we're at with diesel. So we have fuel going to the filter, just not out of the filter. So that filter's pretty suspect. So let's try to get this motor running. First I'm going to spin it over again. Now this one spins over by hand. Alright, it's definitely free. That's a good thing. Oh, hey, that's on there sturdy. This motor's missing the starter. That is a lot of flywheel. Those ring gear teeth are close to 1 inch across, There's a lot of mass back there. But one did come with the motor, so let's install this. I got the starter mounted up. One interesting thing is there's a wire jumping from the main power to the solenoid. Now, basically, I think if you put power to this, this starter is going to start going without having a switch on it. This may have been for an external solenoid. Maybe they had a solenoid and some power unit that controlled the motor, and it ran here and it just shut the main cable on and off in order to make it start. Not sure, but I'm taking that off. This one has a AN fitting on the fuel intake, and I don't have anything that fits that. I'm gonna have to figure out some way to connect fuel to it. But I do have the starter hooked up, and it's getting late. I don't think I'll actually get that fitting done tonight. I want to hear this crank over, and we'll see if more dirt comes out the exhaust like the other one. Then we'll see if the starter works and a lot of other things. You know what? I'm going to check the oil first. Forgot to do that on this motor. Only checked on the other one. There's nothing on the stick whatsoever. I am glad I checked this. I'm going to assume generic Walmart diesel oil will be fine. So that's what I have. Ooh, a new one. How'd that happen? I have absolutely no idea how much I should put in. Okay, I don't know how far down it is. I don't know how much it holds. And I don't know what the lines on the stick means. I'm assuming you can use any of these holes to fill it up. It's got to all drain back somehow. Alright. I think I put about a gallon of oil in at this point. This is a 2-gallon jug and it feels about half full. And still nothing on the stick. Let's see what we got now. Still nothing. That's about 3 gallons now. I don't know how much this thing takes. I've got a tiny little bit on the bottom of the stick, but that's all the diesel oil I have right now. But since it's on the stick, I'm not going to start this. I just want to crank it over and see what comes out of the exhaust. So, and we'll see if the starter works. All right, see what happens. The starter's not connecting. So the solenoid's kicking, but it's not actually making the copper plate hit the 2 poles to make the motor go. Which means the starter comes up. And that's the job for tomorrow. So we're done for tonight. It's the next morning. This motor does leak oil. Step 1, gotta fix that starter. Now, I took the starter apart. It actually looks like it's brand new inside. This has got to be some kind of replacement. But you got to take the whole thing apart in order to get the solenoid off. And I think the problem's with the contacts in the back here. This is pretty much the same deal I already did with the Cummins motor and the Oshkosh. So I'm not going to go step by step. And just like that one, this one has terminals soldered on. So I have to actually remove the solder in order to take it apart. Now this time I have some solder wick, so I'm going to try to soak up some of that excess. And I did mark the cap so I can put it back on the same way. Found our problem here. Now, this starter definitely got wet. That would be our problem there. So once we clean these up, we're probably okay. Not sure how it got that bad. That's pretty impressive. That's cleaning up real fast. So I don't think there's really much wear in the starter. It doesn't look like pitting. Looks like just straight corrosion. Now this is what we got now. This should work better. So, gotta put the whole thing back together now. Now in my last video on a starter, someone commented that you can use shim stock to hold these brushes out of the way and basically make a ramp for them to slide up onto the armature. which is a good idea. You guys should try it if you have shim stock. I looked around, I don't have any. So I'm just gonna put it on the old way, but there are other ways. All right, all back together. Let's install it and assume it's going to work fine without testing it. Oh, there we go. We got debris. All right, now I got to figure out the oil issue. Now I was looking at this 2-cylinder. When I checked it, it's actually above the top mark. So this one has extra oil in it. I can get down to the lower mark on this motor, drain it into a clean can, and put it in that motor. And that might solve our oil problem. Just a little on the dark side. We're just gonna ignore that. I'm checking the sight glass as I go. We still have plenty of oil in this thing. Not the cleanest oil, but we know it ran in this motor, so we got a filter. Well, that oil transfusion was definitely the right thing to do. Now, both motors have the oil between the mark and the sticks, so the level's perfect in both of them. So that was the right call, even though it felt weird pouring black oil into the motor. So now, got the fuel tank hooked up. I don't know if it's gonna work, but we're gonna try it. Well, that's promising. I think we have a getting the diesel issue now. Realize I'm having the same issue. Fuel is going to the filter, but nothing's coming out. We got nothing out of this line at all. So now I've added an electric pump in line between the tank and the filter. Hopefully that'll pressurize it enough to get through the filter. And I got the line off there, so I'm going to turn on the pump. I'll see if any comes out. Okay, we got diesel. And now, I think we'll have fuel. And now we have a new problem. New line in place. Just looking for a leak in one of the hoses on this pump. It's leaking out of the electrical connectors. So, high quality unit for sure. Sure, that won't be a problem. Let's try that again. Good thing diesel fuel doesn't burn like gas does. Otherwise, this would be a fire hazard. We may have some air trapped in the lines from running it out of fuel. Now, I've taken off the side cover here, and basically what we have is a feed line, and this goes all the way across. This is the main feed that's coming in from our fuel pump, and that goes to individual injectors for each cylinder. Now, what I've done is I actually loosened up these bolts, and then I hooked up the fuel pump to my starter switch, so I can hit the power, and we should see if we have fuel going to the injectors. Yep, fuel going to the injectors. Let's close those back up. All right. So, I guess that's the next thing is to see if we have fuel coming out of the injectors. Got the injector line cracked. Let's see what happens. starting to see something. So we might have fuel going to the injector line. Let's try this one. Yeah, I see a little coming out of the top of that one too. Let's button her back up. Now let's see what happens. Kind of running. Starter's cooled down. Let's take another crack at this. Fuel pump's running. Like it wants to go. Seems to do best with just one cylinder on. Idling okay. Wonder what RPM that is. Idling's a little over 500. Idling pretty clean now. Seems to run decent. I'm calling that a win. Now I just got to figure out how to cut it off. The idle's nice. And try that lever on the side. That's it. I got a fully functional giant diesel motor with low power that I have no use for. Let's see about the other one. This is the broken air filter that was on this 2-cylinder motor. It just unscrews in, which is kind of nice. It actually looks like a big pipe thread. It's probably something you just run to the hardware store and get a fitting for. I don't have one, so we're not going to use that. What I have here is the air filter that came with the Coleman tug on the carburetor that I didn't use. So we're going to see if we can make this fit. Now it's too big. You can see there's a gap, oh, 3/16 all the way around or so. So all we have to do is take up that gap with something. And what I have here is the old bicycle tube for my son's bike that doesn't hold air anymore, at least not very well. So let's see what we can do with this. Don't need the valve. Let's see how we're doing. Oh yeah, that's plenty. We'll wrap this tight. Then slide this over. There, nice tight fit. I'll just put a hose clamp around the bottom, we'll be done. Now I've stolen the fuel system to put on this 2-cylinder, and that'll hopefully get around our filter issue that we had last night. So basically the same tank, same pump. The pump seems to be leaking a lot more now. So we'll just, well, it'll be fine. But I'm gonna fire up the system and see if we have fuel coming out, or if it sprays out of any of the hoses like the last one did. That's spraying out of something. What is it spraying out of? Oh hey, maybe I should tighten that clamp down. Well, that's not a very good clamp. Let's see if that's enough. Maybe. Oh, there's a hole in the hose now. That's new. Alright, let's fix that. Alright, new line put in, and let's try this all again. Oh, that was the line I took off last night to check for fuel flow. I better let the hose clamp loose, yep. Alright. But that means we know for sure we're getting fuel out of the filter, so that's a good thing. We've got a leak up here too. That's mostly air bubbles, which means air is purging, so that's also a good thing. So pretty much all these leaks are helping us out. Now I expect we got air in the lines, in the injector lines, just like the other one, so this probably won't start up right away, but let's see what happens. Maybe it will. I think we just got to the air. Okay, to do the same procedure as before, fire up the pump, get the air out of the feed line, then crack the injectors. Oh hey, the gasket came off nice. Alright, the pump is on. Not seeing anything come out of here. Oh hey, there's the shutoff, and that's how it works. Just shuts off both injectors. I'm seeing a drip there. This might be what actually happened. Somehow we're still not feeding. Oh, hello. Okay, I just learned something. Now this valve was the problem. It's the exact opposite as the one on the 3-cylinder. So I had, by making it the same as what worked on the 3-cylinder, I actually shut off the fuel with this valve. So they're opposite. I don't know why. There we go. Now we got fuel. Which means we probably didn't get air in the lines, because we weren't actually putting anything through them. I don't know if I'll actually have to do the injectors. Well, let's crack them anyway, just for fun. Now we're going to crank the motor over, look for fuel out of the injectors. Yeah, they both seem to be popping. So let's button this back up. Let's give this another try here. It works. They both run. Sound fairly decent. I think once it heats up, it'll do better, but it's really moving around the floor on me, so I don't want to run it too long and have it crash into something. Well, that's it for this video. They both run, and halfway decent. So I have two air-cooled, really heavy, low horsepower diesel engines. It was fun just to hear them running, but that's all I have for now because I have no idea what else to do with these. So we're going to end the video here, and if you have any ideas, shoot me an idea in the comments. Otherwise, there's a bunch of people that run stationary pumps here. This would be a good water pump motor for irrigation or something like that. I might just send them down the road because I really don't need these things. They're totally not what I expected to buy, but a fun surprise because I learned an awful lot since I started working on these yesterday. So that was fun, and I hope you guys are having fun too. We'll see you next time. Let me show you something. This motor is leaking oil right around this gasket. So I know it's going to drip, but I don't want it going in the ground. So I put it on an old piece of plywood. Now, I expect it's only going to drip for a while because I bet those gaskets are real shrunken because there was no oil at all. So I think they'll swell up and seal. But by having it on plywood, anything that does drip will get absorbed in the old wood and trapped in there, sort of like a sponge. Old plywood is handy. And old cans. I always save those too. And old plastic bags. You can even use the handles to tie them on so they don't blow away. Now that's on there. Now we're good.